21. That's how many of Mercedes' newest electric cars sold in China in a single month. Not 21,000, 21. That's not even the worst part. That car isn't a flop. It beats the Tesla Model 3 and just won Car of the Year in Europe. Mercedes finally built a brilliant EV, and almost nobody wants it. Profit has collapsed as much as 64% in a single quarter. No recession. Nothing to blame but its own cars. And while it bleeds, Chinese companies have quietly bought up nearly a fifth of Mercedes itself. The trap Mercedes built for itself. Here's the thing you need to understand before any of this makes sense. This is not the story of a company that got unlucky. This is the story of a company that walked itself into a trap with a strategy that looked brilliant on paper and blew up in reality. And to see the trap, you have to see how high Mercedes was standing right before it fell. Go back to 2022. Mercedes-Benz, the company that literally invented the automobile back in 1886, had just posted one of the best years in its history. Operating profit north of 20 billion euros. Margins near 15% in an industry where 8 is considered healthy. Analysts were stunned. Mercedes looked untouchable. And the CEO, Ola Källenius, made a bold call off the back of it. Mercedes would stop building cars for everyone. From now on, it would chase pure luxury, build objects of desire for people who want the best and will pay anything for it. Prices jumped by over 40%. Margins exploded. For one glorious moment, it looked like genius. But Mercedes had confused two very different things: strategy and luck. Those record profits in 2021 and 2022 weren't proof that the luxury gamble was working. They were the product of the global chip shortage, which had strangled supply and let every carmaker on Earth charge whatever they wanted. When the chips started flowing again and production ramped back up, the truth came with it. Demand for cars priced over 100,000 euros was nowhere near as deep as Mercedes had told itself. But in Stuttgart, they kept staring at the winnings instead of the warning signs. And then came the car that ripped the whole illusion open, the EQS, Mercedes' first big electric flagship. On paper, it was a triumph. It had the lowest drag coefficient of any production car in the world, a genuine engineering world record. In person, it was a catastrophe. The 100,000 euro flagship looked like an inflated bar of soap, so smooth and rounded that people couldn't even tell it was a Mercedes. Critics called it awkward. Customers called it not a real Mercedes. And the market agreed in the cruelest way possible. In the US, the EQS lost nearly half its value in the first year. Dealers had them rotting on lots for over 100 days. When you spend 6 figures on a luxury car, you expect it to hold value like a Rolex or a Hermes bag. The EQS depreciated faster than a used car with accident damage on its record. And there was a quieter mistake underneath the loud one. To make itself look like a pure luxury play for investors, Mercedes had pushed out the boring, unglamorous parts of its business, the vans and commercial vehicles that had been reliably profitable for decades. Those were the hedge, the cushion for exactly the moment the luxury bet went wrong. With them gone, there was no shock absorber left. So when the luxury gamble started to wobble, there was nothing underneath to catch it. That was the moment the trap snapped shut. Mercedes had bet everything on being the ultimate luxury brand, stripped out its own safety net to do it, and then watched its flagship electric car become the least desirable, expensive car on the road. The numbers that broke every assumption. But the EQS was just the first crack. Once you start looking at the numbers underneath Mercedes, the whole picture gets worse because the company kept making unforced errors, one after another, each one chipping at the exact thing that made it Mercedes. Take AMG, the performance division that had been the emotional core of the brand for decades. The promise of an AMG was simple. Your money didn't just buy a car, it bought a feeling, and the heart of that feeling was a thunderous V8. So Mercedes replaced it. The new AMG C63, a car nobody asked to be changed, dropped the legendary V8 for a 4-cylinder hybrid. Brilliant on paper, soulless in person. When you spend over 100,000 euros on an AMG, you're not buying logic, you're buying that sound, that feeling. Mercedes engineered it out, and customers walked. Then it attacked its own dealers. Mercedes tried to copy Apple's playbook: fixed prices, no negotiation. Showrooms turned into pickup counters. For a buyer used to haggling a little off an S-Class, it felt like an insult. And quality started slipping at the same time, hard plastics turning up in €80,000 interiors, recalls over battery fire risk in its EVs. Then, in early 2026, Mercedes quietly killed its Level 3 self-driving system, the technological crown jewel that was supposed to sit at the top of the S-Class, because it cost too much and too few people bought it. The inventor of the automobile withdrew its most advanced innovation because the accounting department said so. Every one of those was a small, self-inflicted wound. But none of them, not one, hit Mercedes the way China did. Because China wasn't just a market for Mercedes. China was the life insurance policy for the entire company. Think about how dependent they were. For years, more than a third of every Mercedes sold on Earth went to China. For the most expensive cars, the S-Class and the Maybach, the share was even higher. The profits pouring out of China funded the dividends, funded the transformation, and quietly covered up the company's mistakes everywhere else. China was the safety net under the whole operation. And then the net tore open, not because of an economic crisis, not because of some geopolitical shock. It collapsed because a 30-year-old Chinese millionaire simply stopped wanting a Mercedes. Local brands like BYD, NIO, and Xiaomi had started building electric cars at a speed German engineers could barely comprehend. A traditional German car takes 4 to 5 years from sketch to showroom. Chinese makers do it in 24 months. And these weren't cheap knockoffs. They came with better software, slicker phone integration, more convincing self-driving, and prices that made Mercedes look old and overpriced. To a young buyer in Shanghai, the three-pointed star just stopped meaning what it means in Stuttgart. So Mercedes panicked and did the one thing a luxury brand must never do. It didn't trim prices by a few hundred. It slashed the EQS by nearly €30,000 overnight. Anyone who bought one on Monday watched €30,000 evaporate by Tuesday. Ferrari doesn't hold clearance sales. Rolex doesn't run 20% off promotions. Mercedes did, out of pure panic, and every owner and every future buyer got the message. This car was never worth what we told you. The damage showed up in the hardest numbers there are. In the first half of 2026, Mercedes sales in China fell 28%. In one earlier quarter, profit in the passenger car business collapsed 64%, more than cut in half in 90 days. And that award-winning new electric CLA, the comeback car? In China, in a single month, it sold 21 units. The comeback that actually worked, just not everywhere. Now, here's where the story turns, and where it gets genuinely fascinating, because Mercedes did something most companies in a death spiral never managed to do. It learned. After the EQS humiliation, Mercedes threw out its entire electric playbook and started over from scratch. And what it built the second time is, honestly, brilliant. This is the latest announcement that has the whole industry paying attention again. The centerpiece is that same electric CLA, the one selling 21 units in China. Because outside China, it's a completely different story. Mercedes engineered the new CLA specifically to humiliate the Tesla Model 3, and it did. It rides on a brand new 800-volt architecture, the high-voltage tech that used to be reserved for cars costing twice as much. It has an EPA range of 374 miles, beating the Model 3. And in Europe, it was crowned Car of the Year 2026 and named the safest car in its test group. This is not a compliance car. This is Mercedes swinging back with everything it has. But the specs aren't even the real weapon. The real weapon is what's running the car. The new CLA is the first Mercedes built on MB.OS, the Mercedes-Benz operating system, and this is what actually blows the market open. For years, the knock on legacy brands was that they build great engines and terrible software. Tesla's real advantage was never the motor. It was that a Tesla is a computer on wheels that updates itself overnight and gets better while it sits in your driveway. Legacy cars were frozen the day you bought them. MB.OS ends that. The whole car is now software-defined, updating over the air like a phone, driver assistance, and all. Mercedes just dragged itself onto the one field everybody swore it could never reach. Think about what that actually means if you own one. A software-defined car doesn't get worse the day you drive it off the lot. It gets better. The car you own in 2 years can gain features it didn't have on day one, pushed out overnight while it charges in your garage. For a decade, that single fact was the biggest reason tech-minded buyers chose a Tesla over a Mercedes. Mercedes just erased it, and then it went somewhere nobody else has. The new system is the first in any car on Earth to run artificial intelligence from both Microsoft and Google at the same time. Two rival tech giants in one dashboard in a car that starts under $60,000. You talk to it in plain language, and it understands you, plans your route, answers real questions, and learns your habits. That's a genuine world first, and it's not buried in some $250,000 halo car nobody can buy. It's in the cheapest model in the range. And the CLA is just the opening shot, because right behind it comes the car that actually pays the bills, the electric GLC. The gas GLC is Mercedes' best-selling model in the entire world. So this is the most important EV the company has ever made. And Mercedes revealed it not at an auto show, but at CES, the giant tech show in Las Vegas, on purpose, telling you exactly how it wants this car seen. 483 horsepower, the same 800-volt charging, a range up to 443 miles, and an optional 39-inch screen, the largest Mercedes has ever fitted, stretching across the whole dashboard. And here's the smart part hiding underneath all of it. The CLA and the GLC share the same platform, the same operating system, the same charging tech, the same AI brain. That's how you build electric cars profitably at scale. One foundation spread across many models, instead of hand-building a single money-losing flagship like the EQS. Mercedes didn't just design better cars, it fixed the math that sank the last generation. And here's the proof it's working. Outside China, buyers came back. In the second quarter of 2026, Mercedes' global electric sales jumped roughly 50%. In Europe, electric orders more than doubled. In North America, sales climbed. The new CLA became one of the best-selling cars in its class in Europe almost overnight. So this is the paradox at the center of everything. Mercedes finally built world-class electric cars, and in two of its three biggest markets, it's winning with them. Before we go deeper, quick ask. If you're getting something out of this, hit the like button right now. Subscribe and tap the notification bell so you're here when we break down the next big story in the EV market. This channel is built on people who actually care about cars and where all of this is heading. Now back to the question that decides everything, because building great cars might not be enough to save them. So is Mercedes saved or sinking? Here's the honest answer to, did the comeback work? And it depends entirely on which map you're looking at, because Mercedes is now fighting two completely different wars at the same time, and winning one while losing the other. In the West, it's winning. The cars are genuinely good, the brand still means something, and the sales are climbing. If Mercedes only sold cars in Europe and America, this would be a straightforward comeback story, and we'd end the video right here. But it doesn't. And in China, the market that built its fortune, it's still losing badly. 21 units for the comeback car. Sales down 28% in half a year. And the reason is brutal and simple. A great car doesn't fix it, because the problem was never the car. The problem is that the Chinese buyer stopped caring about the badge. You can outrange a Model 3 all day long. You cannot make a 36-year-old in Shanghai want a German logo again when the local car has better software for half the money. And while Mercedes fights that losing war, the financial pressure is stacking up behind it. American tariffs are squeezing every Mercedes shipped from Europe to the US, hitting margins that were already thin, so the company is cutting to the bone. Billions of euros in savings targeted. 40,000 workers offered buyouts. Shifts cut. Historic German sites being sold off. And here's the structural trap that makes Mercedes more fragile than its rivals. BMW is protected by the Quant family, which owns nearly half of it. Volkswagen is controlled by the Porsche clan. Both can ride out a storm without panicking investors seizing the wheel. Mercedes has no such anchor. Around 70% of its shares float free, held by investors who want one thing: maximum returns right now. If the stock drops, they're gone. So right in the middle of the worst stretch in its recent history, Mercedes started buying back its own shares to prop up the price and keep those investors calm, while the business underneath kept bleeding. That buys time, it doesn't buy a future. There's a slower, scarier danger too, the one experts call the downward spiral of irrelevance. If Mercedes sells fewer cars, it loses leverage over its own suppliers. When you're ordering 50,000 battery cells while Tesla and BYD order millions, you go to the back of the line and you pay more per unit. Higher costs force higher prices cost you more sales, and fewer sales weaken you further. The heavyweight becomes the supplicant. It's a loop that feeds on itself, and it's very hard to climb out of once it starts. And then there's the number that should stop you cold. Chinese state-owned companies now hold close to 20% of Mercedes-Benz. That is not a takeover, not today. But every time that share price falls, gaining control of the inventor of the automobile gets a little cheaper. So the same country where Mercedes is losing the sales war is quietly buying up the company itself. And in Stuttgart, they know that past a certain point, it isn't heritage that decides who owns Mercedes. It's money. The bigger picture, and why this story is just starting. Let's zoom out. Because the Mercedes story isn't really a Mercedes story. It's a warning to every legacy carmaker on Earth. For 100 years, the three-pointed star sat at the very top of the car world. It was the global symbol of having made it. And what this whole saga proves is that heritage, on its own, now guarantees you absolutely nothing. Mercedes had the most valuable badge in the industry, and it still built the least wanted expensive EV on the road, still got walked into a trap, still watched its safety net market vanish. If it can happen to the company that invented the car, no legacy brand is safe. But the comeback proves something just as important, and it's the reason this story is only getting started. Given enough humility and enough money, an old guard brand can rebuild itself into a real software company on wheels. Mercedes did it. The CLA and the GLC are proof that Tesla's moat can be crossed. And that should frighten Tesla far more than any startup, because Tesla's entire advantage was that the dinosaurs couldn't do software. Now one of them can. So Mercedes is stuck in the defining tension of this entire era. Move fast enough on technology to win the markets you still can, while watching the market that made you rich slip to rivals you can't catch, and fending off the investors and the foreign buyers circling the wounded company. Great cars bought Mercedes a future in the West. They did nothing to save it in the East. And both of those are true at the same time. That's the real story. Not Mercedes is dead because it just built some of the best EVs in the world. And not Mercedes is back because the numbers in China and the 20% stake say the ground is still moving under it. The inventor of the automobile is fighting for its life in a world it used to own. And for the first time in a century, it doesn't get to set the terms. It just gets to react. So where do you land on this? Are you looking at the new electric CLA and the GLC and thinking Mercedes just quietly built the best legacy EVs on the market? Or are you in the camp that says the China collapse and the 20% Chinese stake mean the star is fading no matter how good the cars get? Maybe you're somewhere in the middle, impressed by the machines but worried about the company behind them. If you're new here, Motor Zen is where we cover car culture from every corner of the world. The engineering, the history, the business decisions that shape what ends up in your driveway, and the stories serious car people actually want to understand. We don't pick sides between brands or countries. We follow the story wherever it leads. Subscribe if that's your thing. New videos every other day, no filler. See you there.